Hey there, YouTube. I know what my shirt says, but I certainly don't feel like Big Daddy Cool because after 7 straight victories, I finally lost my predictions title belt to my girlfriend. She got a perfect score, so at least I lost to a worthy competitor. For that reason alone, though, this was a crappy pay-per-view. Just kidding. But for the first time that I'm aware of, WWE did hold its second pay-per-view in as many weeks. That means there's a lot to jump into. But first, if you haven't done so already, check out my predictions video to see how badly I got beat. As always, if you're new here, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can also talk to me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus. Right now, though, we're headed back into the Thunderdome for Payback 2020. So, for a review and some fantasy booking, let's take it over to the action figures. On the Kickoff Show, R-Truth interrupts the panel thinking it's Raw talk. He apologizes for being late. Tonight, he's rooting for Apollo Crews because he didn't like when Bobby Lashley put him in Nelson from The Simpsons. I love Truth so much. Never change. We get an unannounced women's tag team match between the newly reformed Riot Squad and the Iconics. Liv and Ruby are in matching outfits, rocking an awesome grunge meets clueless look. Meanwhile, Billy and Peyton are in elaborate white outfits dripping with gaudy rhinestones. Early in the match, Ruby is reluctant to make a tag, causing her to take a prolonged beating. Commentary puts over the history of trust issues between her and Liv. At one point, Peyton knocks Liv off the apron, but Billy convinces her Ruby did it. Feeling betrayed, Liv contemplates abandoning the match until she hears Ruby's desperate cries for help and gets the hot tag instead. Eventually, the Riot Squad team up for a backstabber Riot Kick combo and pick up a nice victory that advances their reunion storyline. Afterwards, they join the panel. Ruby clears up the miscommunication, and they declare that the Riot Squad is officially back. Their new slogan is, they live to riot. Cute. I'm in the process of getting my Liv Morgan figure, so stay tuned for that. Moving on to the main show, the beginning pyro and crowd look impressive in the Thunderdome. I'm definitely glad they upgraded from the Performance Center. Kenny Omega apparently made it onto SmackDown this week, so they've beefed up security and only trusted members of the WWE Universe will be allowed in the visible rows of fan screens. Our first match is Apollo Crews vs. Bobby Lashley for the United States Championship. Apollo does the Wakanda Forever salute. R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. The rest of the Hurt Business join Bobby and sit ringside. They predictably interfere repeatedly during the match. With his standing moonsault and shooting star, Apollo Crews may have my second favorite moveset in WWE after Kevin Owens. However, all those fancy moves don't help as the full Lashley is locked in. Bobby gets the submission and the belt, bringing gold back to the Hurt Business. Afterwards, Apollo attacks during their celebration and vows to get his title back. Based on his physique and MMA background, the rumor for some time now has been that WWE wants Bobby Lashley vs. Brock Lesnar, possibly for a title. Nothing against Apollo Crews, but in order to build Lashley up to that level, he needs to hold a championship for a little bit, and he can't be losing to mid-card guys. So, this was the right call. My fantasy booking, though, would be to match my prediction and have Cedric Alexander turn heel and join the Hurt Business. Meanwhile, Apollo needs to team up with Ricochet and Mustafa Ali because, yes, I love factions. The entire Hurt Business is on the list of Optimus, which are wrestlers I have no plans to ever buy figures for. But if I can find a good cheap one, I'll gladly add Apollo Crews to my collection. Caleb Braxton catches Paul Heyman backstage and asks if Roman Reigns is his new client. He claims that's personal business and refuses to answer. So she asks if Roman signed the contract for his match tonight. He smirks and says that's something she'll have to ask Roman. Future Hall of Famer JBL introduces himself to Keith Lee in the locker room. He offers up information about a couple of hedge funds he manages. Then he warns that Randy Orton is one of the greatest ever, so don't be too upset if he loses. Oh, and good luck. We get another unannounced match between the Celtic Warrior Sheamus and Big E. This is playing off the emotional speech Big E gave on Talking Smack. As always, E throws his jacket at Corey Graves on his way to the ring because you suck, Corey. The bulk of this match is slow and methodical. It's hard to tell whether the fans are into it or bored stiff because of the neutral crowd noise being pumped in, but my money's on bored. I certainly didn't like it. Big E kicks out of multiple near falls and submissions while attempting to feed off the energy of a virtual audience somehow. Finally, he powers back, reverses a brogue kick, hits the big ending, and gets the win. I keep this New Day set OC, or on card, which just means in the box. However, it's not mint because I have let it breathe once in the past. I absolutely love the detailing on the Bootios box. It's so good, I've tricked most people who see it into thinking it's real cereal. I also love the New Day set I use in my figure photography. That's why, even though there are tons of great figures out there of them, I won't be getting any new ones anytime soon. New correspondent Elise Ashton gets Matt Riddle for her first assignment and asks about the King's ransom. Riddle says tonight the Stallion is going to run all over King Corbin and then he'll be done with it. Elise asks what Matt makes of Corbin's claim on social media that tonight he'll prove Riddle is as much a failure in the ring as he is at home. The smirk quickly fades away from Riddle's face and he leaves. That was weird. Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler are backstage arguing about who's in charge for their match tonight. I'm still bored by this odd couple tag team. I just realized that King Corbin is taking on the King of Bros. Neat. As Riddle flicks off his sandals jumping into the ring, Corbin gets off a cheap clothesline. They brawl to the outside before Riddle puts Corbin in a sleeper hold for a while. After regaining control, Corbin again mentions Matt's home situation, setting off the original Bro. With none of his signature moves working, Corbin is clearly frustrated by his underestimation of the new guy. Eventually, Riddle hits the Bro to sleep and the floating Bro for his first main roster pay-per-view victory. He celebrates backstage thinking he's finally done with Corbin, but instead, the King attacks from behind and puts him through a table. Side note, that makes the Broton, the Bro to Sleep, the Floating Bro, the Bro Derek, and the Bro Mission. Bro, that's too much bro. The Golden Role Models come out for their match cocky as ever and wearing matching red and black gear. Nia comes out with a Nobody's Meaner Than Tamina shirt for some reason, while Shayna's gear forgoes the usual red and yellow in favor of silver and black. Shayna dominates early until she accidentally knocks Nia off the apron, seemingly injuring her left knee. Nia gets a hold of Sasha on the outside and ragdolls her into the barricades repeatedly. That looked decent, but her work once she tagged in was horribly sloppy, giving credence to all the criticism about her in-ring skills or lack thereof. The champs bafflingly use strikes and power moves on the 300-pounder instead of attacking her injured leg, giving Nia the chance to make the tag. Baszler comes in and puts on an amazing double submission combining the Kirifuda clutch on Bayley with a Muta leg lock on Banks, but that's still not enough as she grabs Sasha's arm and bends it back, adding extra pressure to her choke on Bayley and forcing the tap. This is exactly why she's called the Submission Magician. Your new Women's Tag Team Champions are Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Charlie interviews them afterwards, saying they killed it as a team. Shayna confirms they're still not friends as Nia screams and runs around the ring like an idiot. This isn't exactly how I would have fantasy booked this angle, but it's not bad, and you had to get the belts off the heels eventually. Now we can finally get the story we've been waiting for as Sasha gets jealous of Bayley's SmackDown title and the friendship implodes. Keith Lee's music was the subject of controversy on Twitter after his debut on Raw this past week. Reports were that it was just placeholder music, and tonight we'd get the real new theme song. Oof, I sure hope that wasn't it. The beginning is still the same, but then it breaks into some generic garbage. It gets worse as Keith comes out in a hooded vest with shoulder pads and what looks like a circuit board design. He's also sporting a furry neon green sarong. What the fuck? Social media is going to eat him alive. We get a plethora of Randy Orton-style rest holds and an exchange of big chops early before things pick up with a good old-fashioned Keith Lee big bounce. He dodges the RKO and nails the Spirit Bomb for a shock clean victory over Randy Orton on pay-per-view. Well, you can't say Randy never put over young guys anymore because that was huge. I'm genuinely happy for Keith Lee, and my fantasy booking is to see him roll through Bobby Lashley on his way to the United States Championship before getting elevated to main event status. With all that said, the injury to Killer Kross in their TakeOver XXX match left a Keith Lee-sized hole in the main event scene of NXT. Sure, we're getting a mouth-watering fatal four-way between former champions, but they're all heels and there's not a babyface in sight behind them on the roster. Keith could have dominated all those guys and built up his aura even further before debuting at a bigger pay-per-view or even in front of a live crowd to a massive pop. Oh well, missed opportunity. Paul Heyman is backstage again and still won't specifically say if Roman signed the contract. However, it's still a spoiler, not a prediction, that Roman will be in the triple threat match and walk out of Payback as the new Universal Champion. During their entrances, we're informed that regardless of the outcome, Seth will take on Rey in a singles match tomorrow night on Raw. So why are we having this match? It looks like Rey is going to start, but as the bell rings, Dominic runs over and attacks both Seth and Murphy. At one point, Rey calls Seth a punk ass. Seth catches Dominic on the hot tag and reverses a crossbody into a Falcon Arrow. Rey hits the moonsault but misses the 619. Dominic takes out Murphy with a DDT and generally an AEW-style spot fest breaks out for a while. When Seth tries to buckle bomb Rey into Murphy's foot, it's reversed and Seth catches a boot in the face instead. Everything breaks down and leads to Dominic hitting Murphy with a frog splash for the win and redemption for his family. Seth leaves Murphy at the bottom of the ramp as he exits, setting up something there. Dominic Mysterio continues to impress in virtually all aspects of pro wrestling. In particular, I noticed his great selling throughout this match. He's got a bright future, and not just because of his family name. He's got legit talent. Going into the main event, we technically still don't know if Roman signed the contract, and therefore if he will be in the match. So we cut to the Thunderdome, where The Fiend is making his usual epic entrance. As he poses in the ring, suddenly he's attacked by Braun Strowman, and the ref rings the bell to start. I guess Roman will be joining the match later. Immediately, Strowman unleashes all his signature moves on The Fiend, including a running power slam that only gets a 2 count. The Fiend fights back and hits a Sister Abigail, but it also only gets a 2 count. Alexa Bliss is backstage watching the match on a TV. She still has her hair up in the pigtails that Nikki Cross said reminded her of The Fiend. She also has a glazed-over, lost look in her eyes. Oh no, The Fiend gets out that stupid comic-sized mallet from Hell in the Cell. Why? Cole pretends like he's never seen this mallet before as The Fiend smashes it into Braun's chest, slams his head on the steps, and does that neck snap thing I do actually like. They fight up and down the ramp. Back in the ring, they both end up on the top turnbuckle where The Fiend delivers a superplex and the ring collapses. What a corny spot, especially when SmackDown just featured a 6-man tag team match with 4 300-pounders, yet the ring didn't break. With both monsters down, Roman Reigns comes out carrying a steel chair. Paul Heyman hands him the contract, which he signs before heading down to the ring. Reigns yells for a new official because apparently Charles Robinson was knocked out in the chaos. The Fiend and Braun each kick out of pin attempts, so Roman decides to beat them with his chair. Braun simply takes it, but the Fiend attempts a failed mandible claw. Reigns nails Strowman with a spear out of nowhere and picks up the win. Roman Reigns is your new Universal Champion. He poses with Paul Heyman at the top of the ramp to close out the show. First things first, every title that was on the line tonight changed hands, and all were clean victories with 2 out of 3 being submissions. I'm not sure what to make of that, but I'm pretty sure that it hasn't happened in forever. Overall, for me this definitely exceeded expectations, especially considering the 1-week build, but it probably would have been better served as a special episode of Raw or SmackDown to pop a rating than a standalone pay-per-view event. It was a show of peaks and valleys, with a lot of high points to get the fans talking, but just as much boring filler in between. This would have been an amazing TV episode, but as a pay-per-view, it was middle of the road. Really just a haphazard way of getting the Universal title back on Roman. One thing that seems strange is that the word payback is a synonym for retribution, and yet the group that calls themselves Retribution didn't even make an appearance. Did WWE think an invasion would upstage Roman's title win? I don't know, but this was yet another missed opportunity. Well, that'll do it for Payback 2020. Again, if you've managed to find me and enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button, share with any wrestling or action figure fans you may know, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. You can also talk to me over on Twitter at PSUOptimus, or check out my fledgling Instagram at WrestlingOptimus. I'll be back tomorrow for an action figure review of Monday Night Raw, so be sure to check back for that. But until then, I'll catch you later.